Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today, for the post-match reaction, I am joined by Colin Watt and Kevin Graham to discuss Celtic's 3-0 victory against Hamilton away from home. Kevin, we spoke at half-time. You weren't too optimistic, but you did say that if we get that important early goal in the second half, then we could be looking at the 3 or the 4-0. So were you a lot happier with the second half performance, Kevin, or was it just the fact that we scored the goals that we failed to do in the first half?
I think that's all it is. I didn't see much difference in the performance in the first half and the second half, truthfully, apart from the second half gave us the goals. And I wasn't panicking at half time. No, like some folk were panicking at half time, but I wasn't panicking at half time. I'm actually quite disappointed it was only 3. I don't think 3 was a reflection of how we dominated that game or how many chances that we actually had. But it's also not a panacea for the whole season. That the fact that we beat a poor Hamilton side 3-0, we still rely on individual brilliance far too much rather than good coaching. And look, it's a win. I'm happy with a win. Phil Mitchell hit Ian Beale over the head, so somebody's just telling me. So I didn't need to watch EastEnders tonight for somebody to tell me that. And Eddie and Lee Griffiths is looking good. So, look, we need to take the positives. We're going to get harder tests in Hamilton, but the 2 early goals in the second half settled us down, and the third goal was a great move as well. And there was a couple of good performances. I like Sorrell. Sorrell always seems to play. He can read the game well, and he always seems to play the forward ball. It's another clean sheet. All we had today was. At the start of the game, I didn't think we would win 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, just because of the weather and that. So I've got to be over the moon with the 3 goals, but still things to work on. But hey, it makes for a happier evening.
It certainly does. Colin, what was the positives that you took from that overall performance, and in particular the second half?
I think the positive we've got to take is there won't be many EastEnders fans on that have been annoyed at Kevin's spoiler alert there. But no, the first 15 minutes of that second half is what I was asking for at half time, is to come out and start using the possession that we had and the chances that we had to get the ball in the back of the net. Now, Eddie done really, really well in the run-up to the penalty, actually lifting the ball up and over the goalkeeper, brought down in a fantastic goal from the penalty spot. Lee Griffiths and Edwards link-up play in the second half was brilliant. There's still some decision-making that needs to be improved. Edward had the ball running towards goal, and Lee Griffiths is peeling off to the left, and I think it was Turnbull or Christie that was also there too there, and decided to go to the right. It wasn't Turnbull, must have been Christie, because Turnbull hit the shot, and I don't know how the referees managed not to see the goalkeeper actually saving that when it went wide. It wasn't as if Turnbull hit it wide. The keeper saved it. The keeper had the referee had a poor game today as well. And that can be said because we have won the game, but just in general it was dreadful. But yeah, it was good to see the third goal, the amount of players that's actually in the box looking to get the ball, so that when the keeper saves it, there's someone there to bounce on and take the second ball. We haven't seen enough of that this season, and Turnbull just seems to get into those good positions.
We're now looking at a side, Kevin, without the influential talismanic Scott Brown, and we are seeing the aforementioned David Turnbull thriving in his role, as well as Sorrell, and I thought Sorrell just absolutely bossed that, and he looks like a real find, which is bizarre when you think that we've had him for almost a year now. You know, Klimala played so many more games before Soro started making appearances. Looking at the other results coming in as well, not any great surprises, I don't think. Kilmarnock, another defeat for them. And when you're looking at an early kick-off over at Ibrox, and we know what we've got to do, the key for me now, Kevin, is lose no further ground. If you can't, obviously, if Rangers aren't dropping any points, you need to try and claw back some of the goals. How important do you feel, two of the things we've discussed, Griffiths and Edouard, how important is that going to be going forward, that Neil Lennon continues with the two up front? Because it was clear for all to see. You look at some of the moves that Edouard was involved in that first half, where he's waltzed past 4 and 5 players. Didn't result in goals. They will at some point result in goals, but he does have a wee bit more freedom. He's able to open it up because Griffiths is stretching the back line, as he always does. Griffiths is still a wee bit short on match fitness, but that's coming. He asked for it the other week. The only way I can get match fit, give me games. He's getting games, he's scoring goals. How important will that duo be, Kevin, in the running for what at this moment in time is still a title challenge from Celtic?
It's what we're pinning our hopes on, eh? We really are pinning our hopes on. We're pinning our hopes on Lee Griffiths and Odsonne getting a partnership back up. We're pinning our hopes on the transfer window as well to try and get us back in. Well, look at Griffiths' goal today. What a wee flick by Eddie. That was some reading. Then that's what we need. When you notice when both of them went off, Ayeti and Kamala didn't actually do nothing whatsoever. There doesn't seem to be any telepathy between both of them at all. But look, we need strikers that we can trust, because for the last 8 weeks we haven't had any centre forwards that we can actually trust, and we need to be able to trust Eddie and Griffiths, because we do get the ball into that final third very often. We do, even at home, that we do. It's just what we do there. Do with the ball there has been lacking quite badly recently. So we've got to hope that they improve. We've got to hope that Eddie gets his karma back and his mojo back. You've got to hope that Griffiths gets match fit, because the only way that we're going to put pressure on Rangers is to win the games in hand. I mean, being at 16 points behind, there's no pressure on Rangers at 16 points behind. If they start dropping points, if it gets to 7 points behind, then that's when the pressure starts to tell. But at the moment, we've just got to start chipping away. I still think there's massive problems for us, and that's why I'm looking forward to the Dundee United game. I mean, a few goals in the Dundee United game and also another clean sheet, and you go, well, that's a wee bit of a step in the right direction. But again, we're still relying too much on individuals.
Yeah, sure. I mean, see, when you're looking ahead to the game at Ibrox, Colin, which it will be all eyes on Celtic then, and we said at the beginning of the game, and I don't think it was an overreaction, Celtic cannot afford to lose a single point at this stage of the game. So yeah, as Kevin quite rightly says, we've got Dundee United coming up. We're hoping for a comprehensive enough victory, Kevin, because what we've seen, I think in the second half there, is going back to one of the points coming in from James Pearson, this is the first time all season where we have looked like a team in the hunt for the 10. Our defence was good, our shape was flexible to allow us to move the ball at will. Skill, heart and hunger. Are we seeing something that started perhaps with the game against Leo coming to fruition with a side that, you know, Scott Brown's not part of that. You know, he's been dropped. We've got the Griffin-Eddie partnership up front. I'm still not happy with the defence, because I still think it's all a bit kind of stuck together at the moment, because that isn't a partnership for me at the central defensive area in Beaton and Ayer. For me, it's Ayer plus either Julien or Duffy, whoever's fit. That's your partnership. And then, you know, you're looking at the right and the left. I thought Frimpong played pretty well today. He wasn't the best at his very best. I thought he played okay. Greg Taylor again comes in for a lot of criticism. Thought he played all right as well. And then you've also got to look at the goalkeeper situation. Yet another clean sheet. So following the penalty shootout, which would have filled him with confidence, he's had a couple of clean sheets. So we're starting to build, and I'm not going to call it momentum, but we're building enough shape whereby you're going into Ibrox feeling a wee bit better than perhaps we would have been a few weeks ago, Colin.
Definitely. I mean, it's all about the momentum. You look at you're talking about Rangers and the performances they're putting in. It's not been the best over the last few weeks, but the momentum they've got from winning all the games is carrying them through. And as they say they're showing the quality, the championship quality they believe they have. That's still to be shown. And for me, the big question when you come up to play them on the 2nd would be who starts that game. And the team that starts that game has to start the game against Dundee United on the 30th. We have to get the formation put together so that we can build this momentum. We can show the championship quality that we've got. And if that means that Scott Brown's going to be playing against Rangers on the 2nd, then he has to find a way to play him against Dundee United. And for me, he has to play alongside Ismaila Soro, not instead of him.
See, when you're Kevin, see when you're looking ahead to this Rangers game and you look at some of the form, and again, we don't focus on Rangers on this podcast. We are now talking about a game that we are playing against them, so we're going to have to discuss how they have been performing. And you look at some of the performances, obviously you've got the St Mirren defeat, but around about that, some of the league performances as well. Dundee United 2-1 away, Motherwell 3-1 at home, having gone behind, and then today 1-0 against Hibs. As Celtic supporters, when we were grinding out results just like that, we were unhappy with the performances, and we could see over the horizon something was going to give, and it did. And we started obviously losing games, many of which were in the Europa League, granted. Now, you're talking, Kevin, about putting pressure on Rangers. Celtic, I'm not saying they're in their best form, they're certainly in better form than they were when we were in the 12-game run with 2 wins. Of course we are. But that game that kind of tips it, the tipping point, Celtic have got to look upon the Ibrox encounter as being that tipping point and putting that pressure on Rangers, Kevin, because we've got the 3 games in hand. They're not going to be easy. Once they are in the bag, and I hope they are, with 9 points, there's a wee bit more pressure. But that game at Ibrox, if we go there, that's your statement. That's actually the biggest statement we could possibly make, that we're still in the hunt for 10 in a row.
It is, but I don't think we've got it in us. I really don't. I don't think we've got it in us, and that's not me just being negative. What I'm actually seeing with this team now is small foundation building blocks to say that we can go on a run, that we can go on a run against the teams that we've been failing to beat over, when we went through that horrendous 2 wins in 12 games. I mean, the building blocks are scoring goals, creating chances, getting clean sheets. And right, the derby on the 2nd of January is a complete and utterly different game. But we'll have to be realistic about this. In the last 5 times out of 6 that we've played Rangers, have completely bossed us off the park. And the run that we're coming out of, I can't see that being any different. We're going to need to go in there and hope everything goes well for us on the day to get away with a result. And that's not just me being negative. I mean, even when we won the League Cup, it was down to big Fraser Foster. And we'll have to go back to the game in September there. I mean, we never had a shot on target, never looked like winning that game. We have got a mentality problem playing against Steven Gerrard's Rangers. And our coaching staff have got have probably now got an inferiority complex coming up against a Steven Gerrard's Rangers side, because they can't get the better with them. What we're hoping for next week is going to Ibrox and throwing a Hail Mary pass, and hopefully we get away with it. And right now, I would take a point just now and just carry on building the small foundations that we're building, and getting a run and beating the fodder that we've got to beat in the SPFL, and we'll deal with other two Rangers games as they turn up.
I'll come to yourself, Colin, because you made an interesting point saying that whatever team you line up with against Dundee United will be your side that you face Rangers with. And I get that, because obviously you're trying to get that familiarity and the consistency that Neil Lennon's been talking about. It's not always possible. Now, I'm going to go through some of what I felt were issues during that lengthy period of poor performances, poor results. And we'll have a wee chat between the three of us in relation to whether or not we are much happier going in, or we are even confident confident going into the Rangers game that these issues have been sorted out. And I'm not talking about the much higher reaching issues that there's been protests at the park about. I'm just talking about the football and the actual side, the shape of the side personnel. One of the issues, and again it was raised actually in the 2-0 defeat that Kevin mentioned there against Rangers, was the goalkeeper situation. We all know the backstory. Fraser Forster was going to sign, didn't sign. Second choice, Barkas, 5 million, hasn't worked out. Bain's no better. Young guy comes in and he's the first choice. So when we go into the game against Rangers, are you happy, are you confident that we've sorted out the goalkeeper situation?
No. No, not really. Hazard was very it was good in what he did today, but it was rarely tested. He's doing what you expect a competent keeper to do. And it's come to the point that we've not really seen that from goalkeepers this season. So when you're seeing him keeping a couple of clean sheets in a row, you're seeing him coming out and winning a ball in the air, collecting a cross, it's what you should be expecting as the very minimum from a goalkeeper. What you want to see is the things that Fraser Forster was famous for last season, like that save at home against Lazio in the last minute when he puts the ball wide, when probably 90% of goalkeepers like that go into the back of the net. You're looking for him to command his area. You're looking for him to win you games and to win you points. Hazard's not done that yet because he's not been tested. And if he does go into the game at Ibrox as a goalkeeper, it'll be his biggest test so far. What he needs in front of him, though, is a settled defence. Now, if you're going into that game at Ibrox, you can't go in with the defence that went in today because it just won't work. Beaton and Ayer's not a partnership. If Julian's going to come back in, then at least they've got the experience of having played in that game before, and they can help Hazard through the game. It looks as though Lennon is going to go with him, though. He doesn't, unless he drops him for the not St Johnstone game, the Dundee United game, then he's going to go with him, and he's putting his faith in him. And a goalkeeper will only build his confidence from keeping the ball out the back of the net, and he's done that so far. But I just wish it wasn't that we had to rely on him for a game like that.
Kevin, what's your thoughts? Obviously there's been a lot said around the goalkeeper situation. I don't think anyone would have thought, well, by December or going into the game against Rangers in January, that our third choice goalie, who was our fourth choice goalie last season and he was loaned out to Dundee, etc., was going to be number one. Are you confident that we've sorted out an issue that was part of the problem that resulted in a run of 12 games and 2 wins?
All the issues that we've had over that run are still there. They're not. They just haven't gone away.
We're going to go through those issues just now, starting with the goalkeeper. Are you happy that we're going into that game having resolved that issue?
No, I don't think we've resolved that issue. I think it's been a really strange season where we don't know the quality of Barkas or Hazard because they haven't really had anything to do, really. I mean, we all know what Big Fraser can do because he's been here about 15 times and we've seen him. But I don't think, I still couldn't tell you if Barkas or Hazard are good goalkeepers or not. They look competent. You can see why they're professional football players, but I couldn't tell you if they're exceptional.
When we're looking in front of them, because I think this has been part of the issue for any of the goalies that have started for Celtic this season, going back to your point, Colin, the central defensive partnership, for me, your first choice is Ayer and Julien every day of the week. If Julien is injured, as he has been for large parts of this season, my second choice would be Duffy, based on the fact that he's come in and given a few competent performances recently. And I think that will do wonders for his confidence, as will having won his first trophy for Celtic. So the central defensive partnership, I totally agree with you. If we go in there with someone like Beaton and I don't mean to be disrespectful to the kid, Welsh at centre half, I'm going to have concerns going into the Rangers game. If we have Ayer plus either of Julien or Duffy, I'll be much happier. Is that an issue that we've resolved?
Well, no, because where were they today? It was Ayer and Bulletin, as they said on commentary, for the whole 90 minutes.
That really bugged you, didn't it?
Oh, it's so annoying. Mark Benstead really needs to... He had a guy sitting next to him who's commentated on so many Celtic games before, and he just let him off with saying Bulletin for the whole game. It was so annoying. But
Kevin's laughing because he's thinking El Yunusi. But anyway.
El Yunusi to Bela Yunusi. No, I mean, he can't change the formation now. He's got a shape that seems to be working, so it will be 4 at the back. And as you said, the best partnership of the three centre defenders that we do have is Ajer and Julian. Ideally, you'd love Ajer to be on the right back position as well, because he's looked good there. You just don't know if you can trust Julian and Duffy alongside each other. They had a couple of hiccups in the cup final. You just don't want to put that sort of responsibility on the two of them when you go to Ibrox. So you're looking at probably having a back four of Frimpong, Ajer, Julian and Taylor for that game, I would say.
Yeah. Kevin, see, when we look at the side, one of the biggest issues, and we've criticised Celtic for it for large parts of this season, and it's been mentioned actually today again, in the first half particularly, everything we did was very central. We lacked width, and that width really stretches our defence, and then we're able to ask them questions. And a lot of the games, like Hibs at Easter Road, Kilmarnock at Celtic Park, we weren't asking these teams enough questions, particularly in the first half of games. The width issue, I think I know your answer, but with regards to the fact that Mikey Johnston come back in again today, get a few more minutes in the legs, we do have Frimpong on the right. Whether or not you think he can stretch a defence is another question. Do you think we have the ability within the next game to sort out the issue we have with stretching teams? Because I think when we look at the Rangers side, they're very strong left and right in terms of their defence, aren't they?
They are. The defence has carried, well, clean sheets. Well, you win games. You don't lose games if you keep on getting clean sheets. They get their word for their fullbacks. Their weakness is also their strongest asset. Because their fullbacks don't play as fullbacks, and there is room in behind those fullbacks. So we have to try and get word there. And Frimpong annoyed me today. Sometimes just coming inside, he would get to a point and he would try to go across the pitch, and I'm going, play the ball inside and run back out to the touchline. Try and stretch the guy out over, and he just doesn't seem to do it. And I don't know if that's what they've been instructed to do, to trying to go inside. Well, we've spoken plenty of times, Paul. Frimpong for me is a right-hand sided attacker, and I would rather see Frimpong, if Duffy is fit and Julian is back, I would rather see Frimpong, if we're going to use him whatsoever over the next couple of months, I would rather see him in the Ryan Christie role, where Christie played the day on the right hand side with Ajer behind him, and with Julian and Duffy as the two centre halves. That's where I would be looking to go, and I think that's the formation that we've got to try and implement on Wednesday night. Against Dundee United to go into the Rangers game. We've got to play the back four, the back five on Wednesday night that we're going to play at Ibrox next Saturday. We've got to. That's got to happen.
No, I would agree with that, and I think Colin was spot on when he said it. Let's have a wee chat around the midfield area of the pitch where we're playing this diamond. It seems to be working. I asked you at half time, Colin, if you were happy with the way that was working for Celtic. What we've got there is a diamond, and Scott Brown's not in it. He's the man that leads you into battle. We spoke about his leadership qualities in the Scottish Cup final. We're now looking at a situation where, if Colin's right and we play the team that's going to start against Rangers and we play that team on Wednesday night, is Scott Brown part of it?
I mean, I said that he would need to be, I don't know what you think, Kev, because if you're going to play him, at least get that partnership with Sorrow there, him and Sorrow together, because they've not played a game together. They need to at least get an understanding before you go into a game of this magnitude.
I understand that point, but then you're playing two sitting midfielders against Dundee United at home.
I know.
And right, Sorrow does like a forward pass. That's how I got Sorrow there. He does like a forward pass, but you're still sitting with two sitting midfielders there. I don't think Brown's going to be fit. I really don't. I think this Scott Brown conundrum is going to be taken out of Neil Lennon's hands. I don't think he'll be fit for the game against Rangers. So Sorrow needs to a diamond. I'm not 100% sure a diamond. I'm not a real tactics man, but I just think that's easily overrun, a diamond. I would rather see us play a 4-4-1-1 and kind of match up that way with Frimpong on the right hand side, or Ryan Christie on the right hand side with Chris Ayer at right back, and have that bit more defensive option with Sorrow and McGregor as the two pivots in a kind of 4-4-1-1. That's where I would see that.
Is it possible? I mean, you've mentioned there Ayer at right back. Obviously, we need to wait and see if Julien or Duffy are available. Ayer at right back in front of him. Ryan Christie, the man you love so much, Colin, on the right hand side. That gives you a lot of energy. On the left hand side, I've seen it commented on in here that they would like to see Taylor at left back with Mikey Johnston in front of him. That would certainly give you a good balance. You've got the defensive qualities, obviously, of Ayer and Taylor, and then you've got Christie. Going back to what we said at the beginning of the game, Colin, if he is focused on that and disciplined on that one area of the park, I think he'll do well there. And then on the left-hand side, obviously, with Mikey Johnston coming in, is that too much of a risk when you look at the lack of game time that Mikey's had?
I don't think he'll start the game. I don't see how you can play Griffiths, Eddie, Johnson and Christie, because that's four players that would prefer to be on the front foot, and to get them to try and come back when you're not going to have as much of the ball as what we had today. We still had 80% possession. So if you were going forward, when they cleared the ball up the park, it wasn't as if there was 4 or 5 players charging at our defence. They had Moyo up there and they had the boy Winter up there, and that was really about it. So it was okay, the fact that the forwards weren't coming back so deep. But in the game against Rangers, they are going to come out and they are going to have a go at you. So there will be times when you've got to have a shape behind the ball to defend and then break on the counter. And if Christie's following the ball instead of staying in his position, then he's going to drag all the other players out of position and leave the gaps in behind, and you can't afford that. So if Christie can be disciplined enough to stay in a position, then it'll work. But it just seems like a massive risk to take.
You know, we've been talking most of the season about missing James Forrest on the right hand side, and yeah, we have missed him. We absolutely have. Someone that creates that amount of goals and scores that many goals is going to be missed by any side. But I now look on the left hand side and I think sometimes that's up for grabs. You know, El Yunusi spent some time playing out there. He seems out the picture now on the bench. Mikey Johnston's coming back in. Would he start out left? Laxalt, I think, could occupy that area of the park, but he's dropped onto the bench. Are there still a few jerseys, Kevin, up for grabs for the game against Rangers on the second, do you reckon?
I think it all depends on what Neil plans to do and the coaching staff plan to do to combat a system that they haven't got the better of the last couple of times they've faced it. So there could be an utter wild card that Neil sometimes and the coaching staff do play. I had to laugh at Colin there saying when he mentioned all the attacking players. I've seen Neil Lennon throw how many attacking players on a field before and play a 4-2-4 and try to get away with it in big games. I've also seen him go to Ibrox and win 2-0 with a team that was set up to counter-attack. The lack of crowd's going to be interesting to see how Rangers approach the game. It's going to be really interesting because a draw will do them. They don't need to push for the win. So it would be interesting to see if the life gets absolutely drained from the game if there's no crowd. And even if we get on top, there's no 50,000 Rangers fans there berating them to try to get them up the park as well. They can treat it as a training game, which virtually a lot of these games are. The Dundee United games, I think there is a couple of jerseys up for grabs, Paul, going back to your question. And I like to roll. Moy played on that left-hand side when we played the 4-4-1-1. I think he put in a shift as a left-hand sided midfielder. So he could probably do that there. I think Christie adds legs to the right hand side if that's the way that we want to go. If we want to go with energy and workmanlike and a team that can be organised, you can have a look at the team that played against Lille, which was a 4-4-1-1 formation, and basically we got a shift out of everybody that night. And Lennon might actually go back to that. He might just want a shift out his team rather than going for flair.
just going back to a point that you made on Scott Brown when I was saying about him playing alongside Sorrell. If he isn't fit and we have him and Duffy on the bench today, then that is just terrible squad management from Neil Lennon. If they two are both not fit to come on when we could have needed them at any point today, then that's terrible. There should have been guys in there that could have been on to give us a performance instead of guys just sitting there on the bench to make up the numbers. There's guys like Henderson, there's guys like Welsh that you could have turned to instead of just looking for players that are only 50% fit.
But then again, I think that's got a lot to do with the mentality Scott Brown brings to the side.
You know, the question has been raised in relation to Henderson and Welsh coming in fleetingly, disappearing from the squad, and then we're in a situation, Colin, where you actually need them, and we've been in that situation with Welsh this season, and when you need a player, you would hope that they've got more than one game against Hamilton under their belt, and that was the situation we were in. So yeah, that's really poor squad management. But taking Kevin's point, I think Bruni and the way that we deal with Scott Brown, how we manage him, is that, yeah, he doesn't start the majority of the games, but to have him there, Kevin, is part almost as that, you know, Neil Lennon's coaching team, if you like, because we've been critical of them as well, and to have that kind of uniformed, that unified kind of outlook between Lenny and Brown in the changing room leading up to the game, he's massive for that. But yeah, I think we're now of the realisation that he is being diminished. His performances, his appearances will be diminished between now and the end of the season. You're talking earlier about a wild card, Kevin. I think if someone's been rested for most of the games leading up between the Scottish Cup final and the Rangers game, and then they appear, that's a big risk, even for Scott Brown, to throw him in. But Francie is mentioning, targeting Tavernier's lack of defensive ability. You're not the only one who is looking at that, Francie, because Gigi is looking at Diego, who could possibly cancel out Tavernier. Lots of options for Celtic. Like Salt's obviously faced Rangers previously. Mikey Johnston. I just think if there's going to be a wild card, Kev, it could well be Mikey Johnston on the 2nd of January.
It could well be. Lennon's done that before. He played Mikey Johnson as a centre forward, did he? In a game against Rangers. I wouldn't rule out anything with your coaching staff and Neil Lennon, because I've seen enough of Neil Lennon to know that sometimes his thinking doesn't follow what we would actually deem to be logical. There could be an absolute wild card, and also, I mean, we're writing off this Dundee United game. Dundee United can come. I think they got beat today, actually, Dundee United, but Dundee United are a very robust side. They play a 3-5-2. They're going to come into Celtic Park and sit in as well. And again, we could have another day like today where we create loads of chances, didn't take them, hopefully get an early goal. But I'm looking forward to the game on Wednesday night. Now, I'm not looking forward. We're showing small shoots of a revival, small building blocks, but we've still got a long, long way to go.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of people disappointed, Kevin, with the fact that we haven't seen your mustard beanie hat since the last time you were slated and berated for wearing it. But I've got to say, Ailey Barber's wearing a very similar hat today on the telly, although hers is black. So, some people do think that you are a fashion icon. But what I will say is we will be back tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow at 12:30, believe it or not, because there's a wee special Axon Bulletin that I'm putting together in relation to everything that we've done this year. So it will only be myself, but there will be other videos to take your attention away from my chat. All that's left for me to say until next time is thank you, Kevin Graham and Colin Watt, for joining us on A Celtic State of Mind.
See you later, lads. Thanks.